Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar. I'm Laura Milojevic, the Director of Marketing and Business Development at Simplify. Today, we're excited to have our partner of Analytics Planning and Consolidations, Jarrett Bialik, discussing and demoing how to configure connections and source data from multiple systems into SAP Analytics Cloud. When the webinar concludes, a short survey is going to appear. So if you guys don't mind, we'd really appreciate if you took the time to fill it out. Any feedback is great feedback for us and how to improve our webinars. So also feel free to reach out to Jarrett or myself when the webinar ends with any questions. So now I'll hand it over to Jarrett and he can get started. Thanks, everyone.
Great, thanks, Lauren. Just let me. Okay. Lauren, do you have to make me a presenter? Or?
I was just going to say, let's see if I can switch it over to you.
Yeah, there it goes. Now it's available. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. Okay, thanks, Lauren. So as Lauren mentioned, I'm a client partner here with Simplify Solutions. I've been in the SAP space since 2005, working primarily with SAP technologies, SAP planning, analytic technologies. We'll get to my bio in a little bit. So welcome. This is a webinar on how to configure connections in SAP Analytics Cloud. We're going to go through kind of where to find documentation. I think specifically for maybe some of you, what you'll find most helpful is some of the connection configurations to S/4HANA and group reporting, which there is documentation out there, but it's not always the clearest of documentation. And sometimes just going through and seeing it firsthand really connects some dots. So that's what we'll be covering, along with some of the simpler flat file Google Sheet connections as well. But yeah, without further ado, I again have been in the SAP space since 2005 across a lot of different industries, but not too many technologies, just really again focused on the planning and analytics. So have a history in BPC, BW integrated planning, BW, and SAC for the last couple of years. So been working with a wide variety of clients, and yeah, happy to kind of go through what I've learned on my last couple of projects and setting up these connections. So before we get into that, a little bit about Simplify. If you're not familiar with us or you haven't attended our webinars in the past, we try to conduct a lot of these webinars, both for customers and consultants even, just to kind of share the knowledge that we've gained through a lot of our successful implementations. We are a boutique EPM, SAP EPM company, and we focus on SAP Analytics Cloud, group reporting, BPC, and BW, kind of old BW on HANA, and we're even starting to get a lot more exposure to data warehouse cloud. So, that's our focus. We don't really, we stay in our lane, if you will. So we have been kind of laser focused on EPM, and for the last 4 to 5 years, specifically SAP Analytics Cloud. Our goal is always 100% referenceable customers, and we're one of SAP's go-to partners when it comes to helping them in competitive product situations, as well as for particular client references. So very proud of our reputation and our customer success. Some of that success is evident here with some of our key customers: Wolverine, Growmark, Fiserv. probably with Wolverine and Fiserv, you recognize those brands. Wolverine is a consumer shoe brand like Sperry and Merrill. So kind of customers, again, across a wide variety of industries, putting in planning solutions, including, operational analytics, financial reporting, HR planning, consolidations, end-to-end planning. So really, seeing a lot of different, types of projects. One thing that we believe really separates us from both other boutique consulting firms and larger SIs is the amount of time that we've invested in prepackaged content. So a lot of our prepackaged content, is available. We use it as accelerators or as just kind of standalone content with minimal configuration needed. And we've spent thousands of hours, both kind of developing it in-house and also taking our experience that we've gained on client implementations and kind of just consistently making these prepackaged solutions better. These have been very popular, with our clients and have really opened up a lot of doors for new opportunities for us. And yeah, we've gained a lot of traction using these. So as you can see, the bulk of our prepackaged solutions are in the planning space, but really cover a lot of the end-to-end planning pipeline. As far as sales and pipeline, revenue, kind of all those three bunched together, but then everything from OpEx, HR, CapEx planning, all the way through to the financials models and P&L, balance sheet, cash flow reporting, and then layering on, of course, SAC's rather, dashboard visualization, predictive capabilities on top of that. So our implementation approach is always, start with the prepackaged solution where it's applicable, and if it can be a standalone solution, great. If it serves as an accelerator, great as well. So we feel like we're able to offer very competitive timelines and budgets for sometimes what are pretty significant planning implementations. So a lot of what we look at with our prepackaged solution is the ability to kind of introduce that and then use that as a guideline for is it going to be low configuration, medium configuration, or high configuration needed. So low configuration would be our prepackaged solution, basically as is. We're looking at typically a couple weeks to a month to implement that, again, around areas like CapEx, HR, revenue planning, financials reporting. And then we kind of move our way to the right as solutions become more customized. So now that I've kind of told you a little bit about simplifying our background, let's get into the connections and what are some of the different types of connections that we see. So as we're looking at our connections overview, we can see we really have two types of connections. We have import data connections and live data connections. The bulk of what we'll be focusing on for this presentation is our import connections, and import connections specifically to S/4HANA and S/4HANA Cloud systems. There are differences in connecting to S/4HANA on-premise and S/4HANA Cloud, and I'll go over those. And then the other type of connection is a live data connection. So at the end, we'll cover some of the differences between import data connection and a live data connection, and when you might want to use the different connections. So this is a great diagram that SAP provides. And if you just go to SAP, help.sap.com, SAP Analytics Cloud, you'll see this under the connections section of the help. But it's one of the better diagrams I've seen SAP put out, and really shows kind of, when you need, specifically, when you can just do kind of a cloud to cloud interface, when you can, when you require SAP Analytics Cloud Agent, when you can just use the Business Technology Platform Cloud Connector. So we're looking at, I reference this document more often than I thought I would, in terms of, understanding if, is this a situation where I have a system, say it's SAP ECC, I want to connect it to SAC, what do I need in place? And we get asked this question quite a bit, what needs to be in place in order for us to get our data into SAP Analytics Cloud. And this diagram is the perfect starting point for kind of understanding what you need and what you can go directly into. So we're not going to cover too much of the Cloud Agent or Cloud Connector on this call. We're just going to focus mostly on, I'll kind of show you where some of that documentation is, but we're going to focus primarily kind of on some of the S4 setup that's required, and then creating that connection from an SAC standpoint. So as we can see, different types of connections here. When you are creating a connection, you basically get the option to either choose a flat file or a data source. So these are all, if you select data source, these are all the types of data connections that pop up. So we can see, you can filter it by categories, cloud, on-premise, or whether it's CRM, HCM, what have you. Or you can just come over to the left and pick it. We have experience connecting to BPC, BW, Cloud for Customer, ERP, SAP HANA, S4HANA, SuccessFactors, and Google. So even that's myself. I think people in our organization might even have additional experience connecting to, say, universes in other cloud systems as well. So as we're looking, one of the fastest way, especially if you're new to SAC or you want to prototype a model, the fastest way to get data into a system, other than creating just a manual input sheet, is to just load a flat file. And to be honest, maybe even creating a flat file and loading into the system might even be faster than creating a planning input template. So it's very easy, very intuitive. I'm just going to take you real quick, just show you if you haven't seen this already. If you're an SAC consultant, this is probably something that's second nature to you by now. But if you haven't seen this, you'll see exactly how easy it is. I just have kind of a one-line file here that shows how you can select it and how it basically comes into kind of the ETL staging layer of SAC. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to come here. So this is our home screen. I can basically choose any model. Come in here. I can just select on the model from the modeler. I'm going to come in and be at basically the home screen for my model. So once I'm here, I can see data that's already in my model. I can choose if there's different versions. I can change between actual, forecast, plan, budget, what have you. I can also come up here and I can go to data management. Before we do that, you can kind of see here's a little schema here of all the different dimensions and the data elements of our model. This is again a very simple model that that I really just built to kind of showcase the difference between flat file uploads and Google Sheets. So very very few dimensions and measures here. So as we come up to our data management, we can see our import jobs. We can also export jobs. You can export jobs as Excel files, but that's probably a feature for a different day. So as we're coming up here, this is our screen that we're going to look at. Here's where I can create data connections to any source system. So be it flat file or a data source, SAP data source, another cloud data source. I'm going to come to this button right here, and it says import data from file or data source. So again, if I come to data source, I'm going to come right back to this screen that I showed you earlier. That shows you all the different systems that we can connect to. Cancel out of that. Now I'm going to choose flat file. Now it's going to, say, do I want to connect to, my local laptop or a file server? This is going to be, specifically on my laptop. I'm going to select the source file. I'm going to select this upload demo. And then if this file has multiple sheets, we can see right here that, I can choose which sheet that I want. So if I were to upload that, so I'll just show you kind of real quick, this is the data that's in that file. Okay, so just 3 lines, actual, real quick and easy. So now when I'm coming here, I'm going to select the screen. Now it's going to be running. And this is a new model, so there is kind of a different, the ETL is a little bit different between the new model and old model. What I'm showing you here is on the new model. So with the advanced model, new model, whatever you want to call it, you'll first acquire the data and then you'll set up the import. So now we can see those records here. If I need to do any data mapping, if I need to do any calculations, this is basically where I would create those transformations, right? So here I have all my data actions that I can run on this. More transformations. Map, transform the data how I need it to get it into my model. So we're going to kind of stop this right here, but if we want to just take that a step further, we can see here that we have our map dimensions. Some of them have already been determined. I can set default values, or I can kind of drop these columns. And because it's a multiple key figure model, we see I have volume and amount here. I don't necessarily have to have every column mapped. I can leave volume if there are no volumes in the data source. So that is the flat file. Again, it's by far the easiest. And if you are just trying to get in and kind of call quick and dirty, get data into the system so that you can kind of see what you have. We use this a lot when we're moving, when clients are kind of moving from a different planning system, be it Adaptive Insights, Hyperion, they'll kind of generate kind of export files, and then we can use those, map them in Excel, which is very easy to do mapping, and then just load them, kind of load the post mapped files into directly into SAC. So again, very quick and a great way to get started early. So now I'm going to show you basically the same model, but I'm going to show you connecting to Google Sheets and how that's a little bit different. So we're going to come into the model, same thing, go to data management, create an import from a data source. And so here I'm going to select Google Drive, and then I have the ability to, connect to my Google account or just copy in a URL from a Google Sheet. So as I come here, we can see that this is my upload sheet. So again, just kind of one number, pretty easy, input. What's nice here is that, and I have to kind of figure out how I'm going to move this. Yep. So that URL that it's asking for, all I need to do is hit the share button, and I can copy this link. So once I copy this link, then it's going to connect to this. So one thing I'm going to do real quick is that I'm going to make a copy of this. I'll make a copy. I'm going to change this amount. 777. Now I'm going to copy this link. Come back to Analytics Cloud. I'm going to paste this link in here. Hit next. I have a row of headers. And now I'm going to see my upload webinar, Google Drive file. I'm going to set up my import, and I'm going to see the record from that Google Sheet. So we'll see here 777, all the file, all the columns that were visible in my upload webinar sheet. So another thing that I want to show you, one of the big advantages of Google Sheets is if I were to come here, and this is kind of my previous file, if I were to come here and change this to 333, automatically updated, I come back here, and I'm going to go to a previous connection that I have set up for this. So I'm going to look at my import jobs, and then I'm going to look at my previous upload demo that I have. And what's nice is that I can come here and I can just refresh it. So we'll see that if we're looking at flat files, I don't have the ability to refresh that. All I have is the ability to delete it. So that means that every file that I load, I have to basically remap it, and create it, which isn't ideal. So if I'm just changing numbers or changing the sheets, what's nice is that I can already have all my mapping already set up. And as long as kind of every situation is accounted for, I can just come in here, right here, and I can hit refresh. And it's going to update with that latest amount. So I'd have to look, kind of see if I can make sure what this is. So it's 1710-1000 input, company code E1. So that just refreshed. There we go. So that just refreshed. So now if I come in here and look back at my data, I should see 333 somewhere in there. I don't have a whole lot of records, so it should jump out at us. So here's 333, and this is 1710-1000. So if I were to change this to 222, again, come back here, data management, and you can kind of just see exactly how quick it is. So I'm just going to refresh this again. Okay, come back to my data. And now I can see the 222. Okay. So again, that's the advantage of having the Google Sheets, is kind of being able to change that data and just refresh it pretty quickly. I mean, that took maybe 30 seconds, 45 seconds to do that. So that's the advantage of using something like Google Sheets or Google BigQuery. Now I'm going to move to SAP S/4HANA, because that's probably what most people are interested in here. So as we move in, so as we're looking, we covered the Google Sheets. One of the most important things here to remember is that most of the documentation for setting up an import connection between S/4HANA and SAP Analytics Cloud is going to be in the best practices documentation. So again, this is going to go through kind of what you need to set up on the S/4HANA side. The configuration that you do from the SAC side is very minimal. Almost all the work that you do is going to be on the S4 side. So that's really what I'm going to take you to, because a lot of SAC consultants don't have access to S/4HANA. So this is a little bit of a black box for them. So I'm going to show you what it looks like on the S/4HANA side. But if you want to see this documentation for connecting to kind of standard S/4HANA financials data, the scope item is 1YB. And if you're not familiar with what scope items are, they're kind of rapid deployment solutions that SAP puts out there that kind of takes you through, pretty close to a real life scenario and how to kind of accomplish a specific piece of business functionality. So this is, what 1YB covers is basically connecting to connecting S/4HANA Cloud to your SAP Analytics Cloud and extracting data, sending data to SAC. So as we're looking here, one of the, as you're getting started, what you'll need to do, and I'll open up the document so you kind of see what it looks like. But the key thing that you want to do is when you are going into S/4HANA, you want to make sure that your user has this business role ID, this core BC com. And what this is it allows you, gives you the authorizations to set up communication users, services, and assignments, or arrangements rather. So as we're looking here, I'm just going to go into that system. So I've labeled this kind of group, group reporting, but it's really, it's our S/4HANA system that group reporting is also in. So as we're coming down here, we can see manage. So we have this maintain business users. So as we're maintaining business users, I'm just going to go ahead and select myself. And then you're going to see all the assigned business roles. So I have a bunch of administrator roles, a couple planning financial roles that basically give me access to specific tiles within S/4HANA. So as we're looking, this is key. When I have this, now I can come back and go back to my home. This is what gives me access to all these tiles. So by giving me, when I come in, I have very few tiles when I'm initially set up. And then what I did was I kind of went in, assigned myself those different business roles, and different tiles then became available to me as new roles got assigned. So another key thing to understand is that in order for certain tiles to be available to you and roles to be available to you, you might need to have some best practices content implemented, basically installed by SAP. So for us in our system, we create a ticket. And for example, 1SG is the standard business content for group reporting. 1YB is the connection. So you create a ticket to SAP, and then they basically install that content for you, and you're able to, then install the services, and we'll go through all that, what that looks like. So as I'm coming here, and I will just open up the documentation real quick. So this is the same file that I showed you. There is a it's important to note that there is a cloud version and then there is an on-premise version. So every time that you're looking, if you're a consultant, you're going to have clients that are both. And it can get confusing because some of the documentation is exactly the same and it doesn't denote between cloud and on-premise. But for some of these, it does. So you'll see here the setup instructions for setting up an import connection specific to SAP Analytics Cloud. We can see here, this is for setting up for group reporting. This is for SAP S/4HANA. So this is different. This is S/4HANA on-premise, even though it doesn't say on-premise, version 2021. And you'll see here that this list of requirements is different than what 1YB is. I'll just show you real quick what it looks like if you were to, no, that's not. If you were to open this, well, this automatically defaulted this, but what you get is you get a, I took a screenshot of it. You get basically a drop down for this item, and you can select, is it on a cloud or is it on-prem, and which version of on-prem it is. So that's something to be aware of. But now we're just going to go through kind of what all these slides are. So when we're looking here, what really dictates what you have availability to from an API standpoint, and what you are connecting to when you're in SAC is you are using an API to connect to specific views of data within S/4HANA. If that view is standard financials, it's going to be AC.A. If it's group reporting, it's going to be AC.U. And so you are setting up these communication arrangements, and based on these communication arrangements have different tables and elements that CDS views that are available to them. So when you're looking, what you're going to see are communication arrangement 0087, for example. That's going to be like standard SAP financials to SAC. Communication arrangement 348 is group reporting integration for transaction data. So, when you're searching for these, and I'll, again, knowing where to search for the online documentation is half the battle. So, when you see this, then you kind of couple this with this knowledge that you're looking for the appropriate communication scenario ID, and then you're going to attach that to a communication user. So here I have the different scenario IDs, which are put into arrangements. Arrangements are assigned to systems, and then you assign systems to a user. So that user then is what you provide when you're creating the connection, from the SAC side. So we're going to do that right now. I'll show you what that looks like. So as I'm coming in here, I'm just going to scroll down to communication management. And here's where I'm going to see my communication systems, my arrangements. If I come into arrangements, I can see the arrangements that I already have existing. So I have 4 of these for group reporting. I have 1 of them for SAP financials. If I were to add a new arrangement, I can see here, once you kind of know, you can either scroll, but this documentation will tell you kind of what arrangements you need to be looking for. So it's going to tell you what basically what roles to add, what arrangements you need to add, and then how to kind of set up the systems to connect to that. So if I were to go to if we were to look into these arrangements, I can see what the service URL is. This is important for when we are establishing the connection. So this is, again, the S/4HANA group reporting connection, which we'll get to kind of after. So if we go back and look at the just standard financials, we're also going to get, for the different connections that we want to see, we get a different URL, or we can use kind of a standard data service URL, which then gives us access to all of these connections. So I'll show you real quick what that looks like. So again, I can come in here. I'm going to create data source. I'm going to pick SAP S/4HANA. And then I'm going to select my S/4HANA Cloud connection. So when I select that, it's going to ask me to create a new query. And then these are all the APIs that I have access to. So if I look here, you know, journal entry item basic, you know, that's kind of like a standard financials. There's also like the GL account flow API, which can bring in like balance sheet data, opening balance, periodic movements, closing balance. I can also bring in master data. So here's all the cost center master data that I have access to. So just by establishing that connection, you know, I have access to all these different APIs. So to cancel, yes. So, you know, coming back to setting up this connection. So I'm going to go back to the user. Again, communication management, maintain communication users. So I've established basically, you know, a single user that has access to all the APIs. So as we can see here, I have this standard SAC COM user. I provide the password right here. And then, you know, basically this is where all those scenario IDs are attached to, again, they're attached to arrangements, which are then attached to these systems, which are then assigned to this user. So as I'm looking, you know, through this, you basically take a system and then you say, okay, what user has access to this system? You give it your SAC COM user, and then, you know, the password is stored with this user. Then when I'm coming here, and if I'm establishing a brand new connection, so here we can see that this COM user is already defaulted. So you would put that data service URL here, and then basically give it a name, and then hit create. But the user that you put in here is going to dictate what APIs you have available once that connection is created. So again, if I come in here, and I'm just going to go into a different model where our consolidations model and very similar, I'm going to create a group reporting connection. So I'm going to select data source. Now, one thing, the reason why I kind of brought in group reporting separately than S/4HANA is that group reporting requires, in order to bring in transaction data, according to SAP, you have to create an OData specific connection, and you have to generate a free query. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and that kind of covers a lot of what we're doing. You kind of saw how to, you know, put in that user and that data service URL for the S/4HANA connection. This OData service is a lot less intuitive. So as we're coming here, you know, I'm going to create a new connection, and here's where you really need to know. So I'm going to say GR webinar. I'm going to connect to an OData service. It's not an on-prem system, so I'm going to leave this box unchecked. So now when I'm coming back here and I look at my communication arrangements, sorry, I want this one. I want to take this URL, copy it, and I'm going to put that right here. Okay, so this is the URL for that connection. I have my SAC COM user, which has access to that specifically for GR transaction data. What I want, I'm going to show you that right here in this document. So as we're looking at APIs for group reporting, if you just go to the help.sap.com group reporting, you can come down here under customization and integration, and there's APIs for group reporting. That's going to show you kind of what API you might be interested in, whether you want master data or transaction data. And then you can also get the information here, which also has the production URL. Now, it doesn't have your specific system that you need, but it has kind of a generic, host and port, and then everything after that is specific to this specific API. So when I'm creating that, again, I'm getting this information in this link right here. This is a list of all the group reporting APIs. But coming back to the system, because I accessed it from S/4HANA, it's going to give me my system right here. I could have just come up here and copied this link. This link right here, basically up to .com with that suffix of this specific API. So now that I'm coming here, I'm going to hit create. So it was able to create this query. Now I want to create a new query. And again, kind of one thing specific, if I were to double click on this, I would see different, if you click the results, you kind of see all the fields that are available to you. If you were to bring this, you would get an error that, based on the selection. So how you get around that is you basically have a freehand query, and you use this, and I can kind of show you what some of these elements are. So here you have a filter for your parameters. So every OData API has a list of parameters, and if you just put in $ or blank, basically means you're running it wide open. But as you come down here, you can see this $ select. These are all the field names that you want to bring in your query, and then with the $ filter, this is where you can select what fiscal period you want to bring, whether you want to bring like a period or white to date mode, your consolidation ledger value, your version value. And then, basically this is what they call a freehand query. It's recommended by SAP to bring in group reporting transaction data. So as I'm running that query, not sure why that would have errored. Let me see something real quick. But I'll show you, I just ran it right before this, just to test that it works. So I'll kind of show you what the results look like. Again, I just ran this right before this. And this is what basically what the data is going to look like from coming from group reporting. So as we're looking here, we can see that I get all this data available to me. If I wanted to kind of bring in cost center, profit center, if those were available, I'd simply add them to my query, and then they'd be available in this. So really, what the key thing to know is when you're connecting to S/4HANA, Cloud, you need to know what communication scenarios have the APIs that are relevant to you. So again, kind of looking at this, some of the documentation. I'm gonna come in here in APIs for group reporting. And customization, here's the APIs for group reporting. So here we can kind of see, again, everything that's available to you and which ones, which ones you might want to use. So again, you're just looking at this, and then you can take this and you can read, you can basically kind of look at, what's available in these queries, how to edit the filters, and what have you. So as we're looking at, that's just one thing to kind of keep in mind, that if you're not in this environment, because again, if you're on a project for several months or a year, you're probably going to do this once and then really not do it after that. So again, kind of just understanding the relationship between the communication user, the assignments, the scenario ID, in the systems. And again, everything is, pretty well laid out for you in those best practices scenarios. So just kind of coming back, real quick, we've kind of covered, a lot of these connections and how these are set up, where you're going to get that documentation. Here's the kind of group reporting, setting up that query. And then, finally, just kind of going over the differences between live connections and import connections. Again, this information is just provided by SAP. But what really drives our decision most of the time is that we predominantly do planning implementations. So given that, that most of the time steers us towards an import connection, because in order to use the data in a planning model and combine it with planning data that's not in S/4HANA group reporting, you have to put it in kind of like a planning enabled model in SAC, and really the only that's only applicable for import connections. So you can see here, both works with analytic models and planning models. You have predictive capabilities. Why you would use a live connection is that if you don't need it for planning data, you kind of want to adopt the security model of the source system, be it S/4HANA Cloud, BW, HANA, like any Webby connections, SAP universes. So this is what's nice about it, you don't have to build the ETL, you don't have to do any transformation. Everything's available to you, and it's real time. So everything, as data is updated, you don't have to reload it. But again, it's going to be only applicable for analytic models. So that's again why we kind of see ourselves, using the import data connection. So, we're coming up on the hour, so I will, that kind of wraps up my presentation. I don't know if we have any questions. Lauren, do we have any questions kind of in the chat?
Nope, not any questions that I see right now.
Okay, great. Again, my name's Jared Bialik. I think you have the information my name and our company in the invite and registration. So feel free to reach out to me or anyone from our team, with any questions you might have regarding connections. Thanks a lot for attending, and hope to hear from you soon. So good luck out there. Thank you.
Thanks, Jarrett.
Thanks. Bye.